It is another episode of Draft to Deadline Inside the Reporter's Notebook. I am your host, Brian Dorman, and I'm so excited to be back in the podcast room and to talk about this next story. This next story is going to touch your heart. It's going to have you asking all the questions. It is called Unknown, and this is probably one of my favorite stories this year. I met a woman recently. Her name is Connie Monsivice. And she was out at a Central Valley cemetery where her husband's parents are buried. And while she was out there, she tells me that she was drawn to a plot and she doesn't know why. She's asked herself a million times why she was drawn to that plot. And it turns out it is unknown. There's no name, which of course is the title of the project, Unknown. There's no name. They have no idea who's buried there. And it turns out that the cemetery doesn't know who is buried there because they lost their records in a fire that happened in the early 1900s. This story is so fascinating. I want to jump right into the interview. And as always, we'll chat about it on the other side. We're just going to kind of walk and talk. Give me a little bit of a lay of the land of the cemetery here for you.
Okay, so this is the older area of the cemetery. And it starts from there, and the newer section is furthest over there, where you see technically bare land in a sense, with grass, of course. And that's where it all started, from that part over there.
All right, and who do you visit over there? And tell me how you ended up over here.
So in 2017, my husband and I came to visit my mother-in-law. She passed away in 2015, and while we were there, I have no idea why I had the desire to start walking this way, and something just led me there. I can't explain why or what, but I found a new friend on this side.
Yeah. So you were visiting the mother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
and for whatever reason, you left your husband.
I left him there.
Yeah.
I just started walking in this direction. And I was looking at all the stones, actually, because I love how the older stones are of the higher level and so forth. They're more detailed than the current stones that they allow. And something just drew me to this end. And I'm not even quite certain, but I don't think this was even built yet, or it was empty at the time. And something just led me to this direction. And this is actually where I was looking at the older stones because they were round. I noticed they were different, and to me that represented a temporary stone. And at that time, I looked down and I saw a stone that said unknown. And then from there, I found a new friend.
And where is your friend in the cemetery?
My friend is right here, which technically is the older section.
Okay. And you know, when you tell somebody where your friend is, what do you tell them?
I tell them, actually, I just have to explain the older section, because if you notice, this section doesn't have flowers. It doesn't have ornaments. If you go to the newer section, or you look at the newer section, you will then see, of course, the more recent people that have passed. But I actually was walking here, and I went as far as right there. And something drew me back here, and that's when I realized that I noticed a stone. It was round like that initially.
So it looked very similar to this.
It was exactly like that. The only difference is that it stated unknown versus a name.
Okay.
And something just compelled me to start weeding around him, and eventually I have the habit of just talking, and at that time it was just obvious that something was happening.
And it's right over here?
And he is right here.
And you say he.
Correct.
Even though the cemetery will say, we don't know if it is a male or a female buried here.
Correct.
But you feel that strongly that you know it's a male.
Correct. So when I first met him, I stood here, I looked at him, I looked at the stone, and I had a feeling, and I just can't even explain it. And my husband called me, we left, and then the next day I was at work, and I just couldn't focus. I tried so hard to focus, and I just could not focus. And for me to leave work is pretty odd. Very, I'm one of those people, when I'm at work, I'm at work. And I actually had to pick up, get my keys, and walk out without explaining a word to anybody at the office to come and see him. And it was at that time that I realized I had so many questions, but I didn't know why. And I found myself talking to him more. And I even thought at that time, you know what, just kind of just get the guts, go to the office and ask about my friend. That's when I started calling him my friend. And unfortunately, the office was closed at the time. And in 2018, I would come and visit him often. I would leave my husband to visit with this family and give him time to spend with this family on the other end. And I would sneak away and come to visit him. And in 2018, my brother-in-law passed. And I had to come to the office to purchase a plot for him. And it was at that time that I finally had the nerve to ask the individuals in the office, can you tell me, give me any information on this individual right here who's unknown? And they could not provide anything because unfortunately, I understand that the initial records were burned in a fire. And there was whether it was a male, female, nothing of that nature. And then they finally asked, are you the one that's been leaving things? Because they said, no, but nobody has ever left anything. And then all of a sudden, I believe the caretaker started noticing he had little ornaments, he had a little fan, so forth, and they could not figure it out. And I guess they were guessing for almost about a year until I actually asked them. And it was at that time I had to explain. I have a connection with him. I call him my friend. And I was even asked at that time, well, how do you know it's a male? It's merely a feeling. He doesn't talk to me, I talk to him. And from there, it's just, our friendship's increased through the years.
And how many years has it been now?
Actually, from 2017 to current date. And at that time, I was barely getting to know him. I would come and see him. I would come and say hello. I would leave a little trinket for him. And in the past couple of years, I thought, you know what? When I'm heavy in thought, when I'm not certain, I guess, which direction my life is going, I will come and I will ask him, say a prayer for me, help me focus. When I'm worried about my kids, I'll ask him, can you watch over my kids? Can you watch over my family? And I realized, you know what? He sits here, he listens to me, and he puts up with me. And I thought, you know what? I really need to do something for him. And that's when I told my husband, I'm going to get him a stone. And in the past couple of years, before my husband used to wait in the car for me, now he will actually get down and come and see what I'm doing, basically.
And to be clear, you already have gone from having at least the cemetery go from this round kind of broken
Correct.
marker to a better
Correct.
marker, and it still is not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. And I know it should be good enough, and I know material items are not so much what you would expect or what you would want. I know material things come and go, but this is something that I think he deserves. You know, he has given me so much, far more than what I've given him. What I'm giving him is just a material item. He's given me a friendship, somebody to talk to, and I do believe he does help answer my prayers. I really do.
That is so special.
It is. It's a connection that a lot of people question, and actually that's human nature. Question, wonder, but in reality, God has given us the best gift, and that is to love. And if this is bad in some individuals' eyes, I understand, or they may not understand. Because people often ask me, I don't understand how you are doing this. And I tell them, I don't understand how you don't understand. So it's a give and take.
Are you intrigued by just your own curiosity, your own connection?
You know what? It drove me crazy for years. Initially, when I first started visiting with him, I was a little reluctant because you hear stories. You hear stories of what some maybe would consider spirits that misrepresent themselves. I would not bring my grandchildren. I didn't know him that well. Nowadays, of course, I would. That's how much I trust him.
Wow. Any idea what his name would be? Do you have a name in mind?
You know what? No, I don't have I have no name in mind. I do picture him as being a middle-aged man. As far as my conversation with him, he doesn't talk to me, I talk to him. I do picture him to be a middle-aged man, but when people tell me they do not understand, I have to explain to them, regardless, this was somebody's son. This person once had a mother. This person might even have children, and they might wonder, what happened with my loved one? And as a mother, if something like that happened, I would hope that somebody would do this for my child, regardless of the age, regardless of if it's a male or a female, regardless if the person did something good or wrong. In God's eyes, everybody is forgiven and everybody is good.
Connie, do you feel like you're drawn to it more because it is somebody who is unknown?
You know what? I didn't know he was unknown at the moment. I bypassed him and went to those over there, and something just drew me back over here. It wasn't a word. It wasn't a conversation.
So you're walking through here.
I was walking through here. I actually came to these,
Okay.
as far as these, because they were round.
Mm-hmm.
And I had not yet read where it said unknown. And something just drew me back to that direction, and that's how our relationship began.
Wow. And these ones obviously have names.
These have names, correct, and I've tried to gather from looking at the surrounding stones when this possibly occurred. And from looking at the surrounding stones, it could be anywhere from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. So without any other documentation or information that could be provided, he's my friend. And that's what it boils down to at the end.
How often do you visit?
Actually, almost all holidays. And I actually get upset with my husband when he comes to visit his family, and he'll say, well, I was coming home from work and I thought I'd stop and see my parents. I'm like, how dare you come without me? And so we often come together. There's been times where I've come by myself, and it's not uncommon for me to come, I don't want to say at nighttime, but in the late evening when the sun is going down, because that's when you really have, like right now, you hear the birds. You see the beautiful sun going down. And this is the perfect opportunity to just sit down and relax and have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Once a month?
Initially, when I first started coming, I was hiding it because I didn't know how people would react to it.
And how have people reacted to it?
Some people call me crazy, and some people say that's the sweetest thing. And I've learned through the years, I'm middle-aged, that you can't please everybody. But if I could please my own heart, my own conscience, my own, just to enjoy life and just to look at the positive things versus the negative things, then I'm good.
Mm-hmm. When you visit, what kind of conversations do you have?
I ask him how he's been. I ask him how he's doing. I ask, what are you up to? I ask, do you need anything? Because sometimes especially during Christmas, you will see some of because this is the older section, the older section does not get as much decorations as the newer section. And so I will see, what does everybody else have? And I will come and I will decorate for Christmas. We came for the 4th of July. We decorated for the 4th of July. We had him a little, one of those wheels that turn. In fact, I came for a funeral just a couple of months ago, and I had nothing to leave him. And I had a rosary in my car from a baptism, and I brought the rosary, and it actually stood there up till just recently. People were kind enough just to leave the rosary on top of his stone.
And even the workers at the cemetery, they were curious as to who was leaving.
They were curious as to who was leaving the items. And at that time, I did ask them, do you think it's crazy? And let me tell you, the people here are absolutely beautiful. They are absolutely amazing. I did have a conversation with one, and his concern was, well, what about the other unknowns? And at the time, I didn't know whether to take it personal, but I did realize this individual works here. He knows the individuals here. This is his passion. This is his compassion showing. And that's something that I often tell people. And I will tell people all the time when I go visit my grandparents, how's your neighbor doing? Something of that nature. And if I were to see another unknown, I would leave them a flower. I would leave them a plant. I would leave them an ornament. And that's what I encourage other people to do, because it's no different than senior citizens or so forth, because everybody wants somebody to talk to them. Sometimes just that smile will change a person's day. And if you see an unknown person, say hello. leave a flower, something of that nature, and it gives somebody joy.
And that's really your message here, isn't it? Is the fact that no one should be unknown or alone.
And that's the biggest part is, yes, as a mother, I think this would traumatize me not knowing. Things are different now. We have technology, we have internet, we have, so many things that we could refer to. It's just a matter of Googling it and maybe even getting a response or our questions even answered. But back in this day, there were no such things. People traveled freely. This individual could have actually just been looking for a job and came from a different city or a different state. And at that time, there were no computers to help you search. There was no Facebook. There was no, all of this media that's going around. So I think it's important that I share something with this individual. I can only explain it other than he's never talked to me. He's never asked anything of me. I do talk to him, and I do ask him, watch over my family, send some prayers, whatever the case may be. And I love our bond. I do. I treasure it, actually.
I'm curious for you to put into words what you feel this spirit has given to you.
Peace. Peace. Oh my God. Sometimes when things seem, as old as I am, I thought at this age, I would no longer have questions. I would no longer have concerns, because when your children grow up, you think, oh, they're good. But sometimes when they grow up and they leave the nest, you have that bigger fear because you're not there. And I will express my concerns to him. And sometimes you want to talk to family, but you also don't want family to be so concerned about you that they're going to worry. You're going to add stress to them because of conversation. I come here, I speak with him, he gives me peace.
So there you have it. There's my interview with Connie for Unknown. Isn't that something? I really love this story. I just think that there's so many life lessons that we can learn from somebody as open-minded and open-hearted as Connie, to be able to give back in such a big way. I know you guys are dying to hear the story about how I heard about this story to begin with. So Connie is actually the sister of a friend of mine. And we were at a dinner one night, and Connie said, hey guys, are you interested? And there was a whole bunch of people at this dinner. Are you interested in coming out to the cemetery with me when I have a ceremony for my friend? And if you watch the full version of this, the television version, which you can find right now on yourcentralvalley.com, you will see that they actually did hold on Connie's birthday a ceremony as the new headstone was put in, with family and friends and coworkers that had gathered at the cemetery that day. So anyway, we're at this dinner and Connie says, will you guys come to the ceremony? And I'm sitting here, I'm kind of putting together the pieces to the story, but really don't fully understand exactly what they're talking about. I said, what are you guys talking about? And so then they fill me in on the whole story about how Connie was drawn to this plot at the cemetery. It turned out to be somebody unknown. She started leaving things there. She started asking questions of the cemetery, who's buried there. They didn't know. And then she was unsatisfied with the marker and went and ordered and paid for on her own a headstone. All of that. And so I'm hearing this story and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, this is TV news gold. And this is where I run into trouble sometimes with my friends. My friends don't like sharing or telling stories like this because they're worried I'm going to jump right on it and want to do a TV story about it. And that's exactly how I was with this. I said, Connie, we have got to do a news story about this. And she was so shy about it, so humble. She said, I don't want it to look self-serving. I don't want it to look like I did this intentionally or did it because I was seeking out any type of pat on the back or publicity for what I was doing. It was a random act of kindness, and she didn't want any press about it or any attention drawn to it. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, I promise you that I will do the story and tell it in a way that does not come across as self-serving. And I hope that I did. I hope that the story, the big takeaway here is really that we all should be looking for opportunities to be a little nicer, be a little kinder, do a random act of kindness for somebody else that we know or don't know, a stranger that we just met or somebody that we will never meet in this case. I just thought it was so fascinating. I love this story. I love this story. I love this story. I love Connie. It is, to know Connie is to really understand her heart. She's from Carruthers. She holds a gift giveaway every single year in Carruthers, and she pays for all the gifts for herself, for those who can't afford them for the holidays. This is just Connie. And if you had a chance to know her personally, and I know many of you are actually friends with her, she's really well known in Carruthers for just giving back and having that kind-hearted spirit. That's just her. And this story, I think, is just going to go down with one that I'm going to remember for years and years to come. And I love sharing the story with you. I hope that you're able to watch the full version on television because it was quite a hoot. And really, honestly, my photographer, Orlando Garcia, we work on all of these special projects together. He said, you know, I walk away from that story wanting to be a better person, wanting to do something nice for somebody that I don't know, wanting to think of ways that I can give back with random acts of kindness. And I think what more of a gift that Connie could give all of us than that spirit and that reminder that we all can be a little gentler to ourselves and to each other. So I love it. And that's what this podcast is all about, is taking you inside the story, how we find these stories, why we tell them, what they mean to us. It is Draft to Deadline, inside the reporter's notebook. Until we meet again, and hopefully it is sooner than later because I'm working on another really great project I cannot wait to tell you about, and we'll talk about it soon.